BPD affects only 2% of the population. That's 7 in every 1,000 people in the UK. Hey guys, so today is a pretty personal video as I actually have borderline personality disorder. So first, what exactly is it? Also known as emotionally unstable personality disorder, impulsive or borderline type or emotional intensity disorder, borderline personality disorder is a personality disorder. The essential features include a pattern of impulsivity and instability of behaviours, interpersonal relationships and self-image. Yes, the official definition actually states borderline personality disorder as it is a personality disorder. Kind of figured that. But anyway, aka hell. So in order to be diagnosed with BPD, someone has to have 5 or more of the following 9 symptoms. And today we're going to mix it up a bit. The relation to sanity part of the video will be mixed in with the diagnostic criteria part of the video, because some of the DCs are quite long-winded and it's pretty much just easier to go through them all as a whole rather than go over tiny little ones, because there aren't really any. The first is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So this is basically the paranoia that someone is going to leave you alone forever, even if they show no signs of doing so. Some BPDs I've heard of will actually physically lock doors and hide keys so that someone cannot leave the house because the paranoia is so strong. Second is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and evaluation. This is also known as black and white thinking, where one minute you love someone or idolize them and the next minute you hate or despise them. And that can be for no reason at all or just from a little trigger, like they did something that bugged you. Third is identity disturbance, a markedly and persistently unstable sense of self or self-image. So this is basically when someone's opinion of themselves changes quite rapidly. When one minute they think they look really good or that they're a good person, and the next minute they hate themselves or think they look ugly. 4 is impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging. For example, spending, sex, drink driving, binge eating or substance abuse. I'm pretty sure this one is self-explanatory. Promiscuity, eating too much, driving like a loony or doing drugs. 5 is recurrent suicidal gestures, threats or self-mutilating behaviour. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Hurting yourself on purpose or trying to kill yourself. 6 is affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. For example, intense episodic dysphoria, irritability or anxiety, usually lasting only a few hours and only rarely more than a few days. So this is basically when someone gets so bad that they can't control their emotions at all, to the point it starts affecting their daily life, where they can't go out of the house, they can't go to work, they can't go to school, anything like that, because every second their emotion is changing, their anxiety is getting worse, the anxiety attacks can get a lot more frequent, and basically they're just completely unstable. 7 is chronic feelings of emptiness. Finally, a shorter one that I don't have to remember lines and lines and lines of. Although, how do I explain this one? So as an example of this one that I find it very, very hard to explain, I'm going to use a similar example to what I used in the depression video. I want you to think of losing someone you love. Someone you love very closely has died. And that feeling, that initial feeling of knowing you will never speak to them again, never see them again, and never hug them again, that immediate feeling of loss, of like there is something missing, that is kind of like the feeling of emptiness, is you just don't feel whole. You just feel like there's something missing and there's this deep ache that you just can't shift. That's kind of like chronic feelings of emptiness. 8 is inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. For example, frequent displays of temper, uncontrollable anger, or recurrent physical fights. So I think this one is also pretty self-explanatory. Getting so angry you physically shake, and sometimes you can actually black out and not remember what happened. That's usually when the physical fights come in. And there's also a myth about BPD that BPDs are all dangerous. That's not true. I mean, I've had BPD God knows how long, possibly my whole life. I was diagnosed at 15. I've been in psychiatric care since I was 13, so 8-9 years now. I've been in 2 fights my whole life. So yeah, that myth, not true. And 9, transient stress-related paranoid ideation, or severe dissociative symptoms. Okay, so paranoid ideation is basically when someone gets an idea in their head that, for example, someone is out to get them, and it gets so bad that they start fantasizing about what's going to happen, what might happen, what this person's going to do. That's kind of like paranoid ideation. The dissociation, however, this is when someone begins to believe that part of them is out to get them. So basically, almost like there is a second personality in their body, like their own mind is out to get them, that they are physically going to cause themselves harm, when purely because there is another part of their mind that is evil. That's kind of the only way I can think of to explain it. Basically, someone believes there are two kind of personalities in their body, one is out to get the other. Basically, BPD is hell in a handbasket. But what causes it? Research studies suggest that 60% of the risk of developing BPD comes from genetic abnormalities. Basically, your genetics gone wrong, and mainly in the brain, the parts of the brain that control the anger center of the brain and the reactions to external emotional stimuli. So basically, seeing someone's face and how they come across to you emotions-wise. That and the parts of the brain that control impulse control and reasoning, it shows that they are actually lower and higher in the brains of BPDs than in people without the condition. So the anger and the external emotional stimuli part of the brain, for example, are overactive. So the anger is more prominent and reacting to emotions is a lot more confused because the reasoning part of the brain is not as high functioning as the rest. The other 40%, however, is unknown, but they do believe it to be mainly from childhood trauma, such as childhood abuse, being separated from your parents at too young an age, or from inconsistent, unsupportive care. And now the myths of BPD. Not gonna lie, before I was diagnosed and even after I was diagnosed, I actually believed a couple of these, and it took me a while of personal experience before I realised they're just not true. So the first one is people with BPD are manipulative and only want attention. Now, this myth is partially true and partially false. Now, a lot of BPDs can be known for being quite manipulative due to the nature of the condition and the separation anxiety and the fear of abandonment. And only wanting attention, again, a lot of BPDs are prone to this because of the nature of the condition. However, most BPDs are also so full of emotion that all they want to do when they fully love someone is to help them, is to do good things for them. So manipulation is only in certain circumstances, and not every BPD does it, because it does also come from the personality of who has the condition. Even though BPD is a personality disorder and it can distort the personality, someone also has to have that natural tendency to do so. 2 is that BPDs cannot feel real emotion. Actually, it's the complete opposite. BPDs feel too much emotion. For example, I've never known what it's like to be happy, or sad, or content, or kinda peed off. I've only ever known mania, depression, full-on rage, or, although to be honest, sometimes I do get just angry and not the rage, but we'll go into that later. Or boredom. I've never known these normal emotions where you're kinda this or kinda that. It's always been very extreme for me. And most BPDs experience this. We get so much of the one emotion to the point it's overwhelming. And the last myth we're going to go over is number 3, which is you cannot have any kind of relationship with a BPD. This is not true at all. Now, I will give the myth this. It can be extremely hard to be in a relationship with a BPD. Not gonna lie, it can be a struggle, and you've got to be pretty strong to put up with the crap. I mean, there's a lot of paranoia, there's a lot of self-hate, and a lot of black and white thinking too. But I personally know what it's like to be in a relationship with BPD, and my partner does too, because both of us actually have BPD. So not only do we have to deal with one or the others, we have to deal with both of our mental conditions, even when both of us are having bad days, and even really extreme bad days, which can be a struggle. I'm actually going to do a separate video on this at some point. We've been planning this for a wee while, but we've not got it set up yet. is me and Lee are going to sit down and we're going to be open and honest on camera, and we're going to tell you guys what it's like to live with two BPDs, being ourselves, what it's like having to cope with our own minds and each other's. So I'm hoping that video will be out soon. So guys, my question for you this week is, have you ever heard of borderline personality disorder? And if you have it, what symptom affects you most and what helps you deal with that when it hits? Hit me up in the comments guys, or send me a message. Either one would be fantastic. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you did, hit subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next video.